What's going on, guys? Today it is September 23rd and I'm out here at the Hills property getting ready to start a two-part experiment that I'm conducting with 3 different types of feeds that are popular here in Kentucky. The 3 different types of feeds are Big&J, Big Tine, and Monster Meal. Now, I've never used Monster Meal, but I've used a little Big&J. My favorite one out of all 3 of these has been Big Tine so far. I'll get into why as the video goes on, but the reason for this experiment is to basically figure out which the deer prefer to feed on. And we're going to be conducting this in the early season, late September, which it is right now, and then again in late to mid-December when the rut is over with. Because throughout the season, deer will feed and browse on different things, acorns, food plots, go back to corn and beans, and I want to see if what they're browsing on with different types of feed will change throughout the season. So we might have one that works really well in the early season right now, and then when we reconduct this experiment for the part 2 series, they might prefer a different style of feed and compared to the one that they were chowing down on in the early season. So it's a 2-part, but we're going to go ahead and kick the part 1 off for this experiment right now, so stay tuned. Now, before we put the attractants out, I'm going to talk about each one for a few seconds, kind of hear the negative, or talk about the negative comments that I've heard from each one, talk about the positives, and talk about the price that each one of these sell for. Now, over the 8 years, 6 years, whatever, I forget how long I've been filming, I've tried so many different attractants. So I'm very knowledgeable in this field from past experience. And also the fact that I work for a outfitter or retailer that sells all these products, I hear a lot of feedback from the customers. And I love that because it not only helps me inside of the store, but it also helps me out here in the field. And one of the biggest things that I've heard from Big&J and Monster Meal is that the deer, sometimes if they don't get to it fast enough, it will actually mold. Now, I've used Big Tine or Big&J. I've never seen that happen. I don't know if it's because of the area that I'm putting it out at, that it's different from what the customer is, if it's rainy there, or it's hot there, the sun gets to it, I don't know. But I've never seen Big&J mold. Now, the negative feedback that I've heard from Big Tine is not a lot. And I don't mean to sit here and make this video sound like I'm selling Big Tine and trying to advertise it, but I really haven't found too many negatives. Literally the only negative that I've heard and found is that because of the content of this bag, that all the different types of feed and seed that is mixed into that bag, that it attracts so many different other types of animals and not just deer. It's got sunflower seeds, it's got all kinds of oats, it's really high in protein, but because of the different types of seed that it has, it attracts so many different types of bird species, as well as chipmunks and squirrels. I mean, I get turkeys, doves, cardinals, like I was saying, squirrels and chipmunks. I mean, there's so many different types of small game animals that feed on this that I don't think the deer get the full Big Tine experience. And that's literally been the only issue, because it is very similar. It's almost like an upgraded bag of corn, just plain corn. It's got corn in there, but with so many different other types of seed to bring up that protein content. And Big&J and Monster Meal are both super high in protein as well, but I think it's the texture of the bags that ruin that experience and ruin that deer's favoritism in these different types of feeds. And that's what this experiment is going to basically solve for us. So I'm not mixing corn with any one of these, and you're probably looking at me, you're like, well, Big Tine's obviously going to win, it's got more in it. Well, that's not what I'm going to do. These are both the same size bags. I'm going to be putting out the full bag of these and then half a bag of this, so it's comparable to each one of these. And then the rest of this bag is going to go up to my tree stand where I've got Big Tine out. And who knows, maybe after this experiment, I'm going to be switching to a different type of feed because I learned something from it, or using different types of feed throughout the season. And one other thing I'm going to note is the price of each one of these feeds. If you were to get a 40-pound bag the same size as this Big Tine and Big&J, it rings out at $39.99. That's what it sells for in retail. Now, if you start looking at Monster Meal, that rings out at $39.95. And then the cheapest one of them all in a 40-pound bag is this Big Tine, and that rings out at $17.99. I don't know why, because I feel like all the different types of feed that are in this bag would be more expensive, but it's not. So that could be a positive, but at the same time, I know they put all kinds of enhanced formulas into these different types of feed that it's sometimes healthier or better for the deer. So I don't know if that's why the price is so high. But without further ado, let's go ahead, get these out of the truck, get them in their spots. Let's get some feet out with the trophy cam ready to go. Alrighty, we got the Big&J, monster meal, and the big tine all out, even amount in each pile, and then the Bushnell trophy cam is rolling hot, ready to take some pictures. So I'm excited. I know you guys are probably excited, so stay tuned because this is just the beginning of this two-part experiment. Guys, I don't know if you guys can see from that distance, but we've got Big&J, monster meal, but no big tine. See what the camera says. Whew. 1,500 photos. I had it on, I think, a 20-second interval, so if the deer was in front of it, it took a picture every 20 seconds. But that's still a lot of photos for the few days that I was out here. I came out here on the 23rd and set this up, and here it is the 26th, so it's been exactly 3 days. And I have no big time left, so obviously, you know, sitting here looking at this, they take the win. You know, the photos will speak for itself. I know we talked about in the back of the Tahoe that, you know, there is other animals that will browse on this, but we'll see. Let's go home, get the chip out of the trophy cam, get it plugged into the Mac, and see what these photos have to say. And we will chit chat with you guys more when we get back there, so stay tuned. Right off the get-go, you can see basically who is already in the favorite between the three attractants. The first photo I've got is a little, I think it's a button buck showing up, and then shortly thereafter some does show up, and then TJ, one of my bucks, shows up. He's on the big tine. They're not even close to the monster meal or the Big&J. I mean, looks like he walks over and sniffs the monster meal and then leaves does on the... There's TJ again doing his thing. More does. TJ again doing his thing. It's literally all big tine. Deer after deer after deer on the big tine. So he does try a little Big&J. Okay, Big&J tried some monster meal. Straight back to big tine. So this is, you're probably going to, well, look at it's even. There's a buck, there's two bucks. One's on Big&J, one's on big tine. Well, really what's happening in this photo is the more mature animal, which is TJ on the right, has basically taken over that big tine pile. While I'm not saying deer won't feed on the other ones, this experiment is for what is favored. And I can almost guarantee the minute TJ walks off, bam, literally 2 photos over, the bucks are fighting over big tine. Look at that. Look at that, man. Look at TJ walks off. They're still fighting. I can't believe that, man. So it does look like some of the deer have kind of checked around. Looks like the monster meal got touched a little bit. They did feed on it a little bit. A little bit. The big time's up. By this point, there's literally no big time. I mean, look at the deer go over, sniff, and look at they leave. So it looks like the second place winner for this early season experiment is Monster Meal. So even when the big tine's gone, they're basically coming over, checking to see if the big tine is there, and it's not, and they go over, take a couple sniffs, bites, maybe, of the Monster Meal and the Big&J, and then they leave. There was one thing in this experiment that somebody told me I should have done. They said that I should put the corn with the Monster Meal, or put regular corn with Monster Meal and with Big&J. Now, that's great, but the attractant isn't supposed to be put out like that. Now, you can put it out with corn, but are they coming to the corn then, or are they coming to the Big&J, to the Monster Meal? And with that being said, that kind of goes towards the fact that if you look what won was the big tine. The big tine that's, you know, corn filled, sunflower seed filled, and I can't even know what other seeds are in oats or in that food plot or in that feed mix, but the wholesome meal that's crunchy, that's full of actual foods and not ground up and processed, was what brought those deer in, is what those deer killed in this experiment. Now, there's a two-part to this experiment. I've said this about 1,000 times in this video, and we will do it again in the late season, but in the early season, big tine's what won. And I hope that we see something possibly change, so it doesn't look like I'm just trying to sell big tine. I mean, I don't know, but I really do think it's the texture of the product that really hurts Big&J and Monster Meal and all the wild game innovation attractants that they make in the market right now, like the Acorn Rage, like the Beets thing that they do, that powdery stuff. I mean, we as humans don't look at a bowl of sugar and just be like, wow, that's a great meal right there. You know, and deer look at it like that as well. When they're browsing, they look for the best acorns. When they're, you know, looking for food plots, they're looking for what's good that time of the year, what's high in protein. Deer know what to eat. They're not trained. They know what's good for them. They know what their diet should be full of. And when you put out 3 attractants like that, the 3 of the biggest attractants in the market right now, and they choose one of them, I mean, that's saying something. And, you know, I'm not bashing it. We did look at the photos that we've got, and there was some photos that, you know, showed the deer actually feeding on the Monster Meal more so than the Big&J. But the main one that was killed, that was gone within like a day and a half of the experiment, was big tine. And one more thing before we go, I really want to clarify, I'm not paid by any company. I'm not paid by Big Tine to sell this product or to push this product. I was simply conducting this experiment to see on my half what I should be feeding my deer, what my deer prefer, and I wanted to share this experiment and this experience with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to check out our channel, like the video, subscribe if you already haven't, and then check out our social media pages. We're always keeping in touch with the fans through social media because it's a lot easier to just make a tweet or post a picture on Instagram than it is to edit all this content. So thank you very much, guys, and I'll catch you later on the next episode of The Outdoorsman.